This set of questions is all on Proposition A, CapMetro. The first question being, what is your stand on Prop A? State your position on CapMetro and explain. Second question was, participate in CapMetro is on the ballot. What do you believe are the mass transit needs for our community? And do you believe remaining in CapMetro is the answer to meet those needs? What services would you like to see the city provide? The third question was, if the citizens vote no on Proposition A and yes on Proposition B, the city will be able to collect additional sales tax in the future. What would you like to see the money spent on? Are you ready, Miss Marion?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay.
All right, so my stance on Prop A, and really I'm probably going to answer these kind of all together if that's all right with folks. But I want to start out following up on something that Councilor Prince mentioned just a minute ago. This isn't a proposition about buses or no buses. The proposition is not about discontinuing transportation services here in our community. The question is really, can we find another way to fund public transportation here in our community that may be more cost effective for our citizens? That is what I'm in favor of doing. So I believe that the mass transit needs for our community are to ensure that we have some sort of transportation in place for folks who may have a qualifying disability and need to get from place to place. I really think that a pickup service is very convenient, but I'd like to see a pickup service that serves our entire community, not just pockets of our community. And I believe that we need to provide connecting service from our city to either Jonestown, where folks can catch the 214 feeder, or beyond that, depending what transportation alternatives we end up going with. Those are the services that I'd like to see the city continue to provide. Again, I'll state that this isn't about buses or no buses. Really, what we're trying to do is identify a different way to fund transportation here in Lago Vista. Currently, CapMetro is funded through a 1% sales tax, which a few years ago may have been $400,000, now has increased dramatically to over $1 million for this coming year, and will only continue to increase as our sales tax revenue increases. What I'm in favor of doing is looking for alternatives that provide the same or better services, but again, at perhaps 1/4 or 1/5 of that cost. And that may be contracting with CapMetro through an interlocal agreement where we don't pay them or fund them through a 1% sales tax, but pay them instead through contracted services and funds from the city. If citizens vote no to Prop A and yes on Prop B, what I'd like to see, keep in mind that money that we would recapture, can only be used for certain things. What I would like to see that money used for would be to help subsidize money to improve our streets, potentially to develop or increase our parks programs, used for water infrastructure, upgrades and expansion, or public safety, like perhaps funding additional police officers. Thank you.
Dave, I intended to go to the left this time, and we'll circle around just for different orders.
Can you hear me? Yep. All right, so I am in support of getting out of the current service contract with CapMetro, and I do fully believe that the city council is genuine, that they are not trying to remove public transportation, and that they will do their best to get something in place as soon as possible. I truly do believe that, and I think that at the town hall meeting last week, you saw a number of citizens also stood up and said that if there wasn't gap in service, that we ourselves would help drive people around. I'd be happy to do that. It won't be the cleanest ride you've ever been in, but we'll most likely get there. I also, just as a legislative side, had I not been in this process and heard, I would not have known about this penalty that CapMetro and all transportation authorities are able to impose on these cities. I find it to be a gross misuse understand that it's in the statute. I'm currently drafting legislation that I hope I can give to our new senator or state rep to pass to remove that ability of them. I think this is a way for cities like Austin and their transportation authorities to use these outer cities to pay for their infrastructure, and I don't think that's appropriate. I also think it's probably not transparent and not helpful to the citizens that you can't vote on it again for 5 years. I've never seen that anywhere else in Texas statute. I think that is something that really needs to be corrected. What do I believe mass transit needs for our community? I agree. I think inner city, we should be able to commute anywhere within the city we want. I think we should have interlocal. We should be able to go to Jonestown and Cedar Park, and we can do it at a much better rate than what we're currently getting through CapMetro. I think the citizens vote no, and yes on Prop B, city bill will collect additional tax. I think infrastructure for sure, roads is something that I've been doing my block walking and going to different events. I hear it all the time. Everybody has a street story of some pothole they've been dealing with for the last few years, and that'd be great to see that. I think public safety is for sure. As the city continues to grow, our police force is going to need more officers. They're going to need more tools. Another thing is I hear a lot of people talk about the golf course. There are certain parts of the golf course. I think equipment people say they want to see more of. I think youth sports, which includes beyond the golf course, but I think youth golf and youth sports at our park would be great. One thing I don't hear a lot about, but I support as I'm on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, I would like to see some funds go towards economic development. I want to help our local business here grow. When I worked for the governor, that was the first thing we told cities. They always wanted to go out and get Facebook or Apple, and I told them, you have 2,000 citizens. I don't know how you're going to employ 50,000 Facebook workers. So the best thing to do is to help your local businesses grow. And I see that here on the island. We lost our restaurant recently, and I'd really like to fill that with a local restaurant. And if we could have our economic development department help those efforts, that would be great. Thank you.
I've seen Shane's Jeep, and so that would be a stylish ride. Maybe not that clean, as he says, but it would be good. Much of what's been said, I completely agree with. I think just to be very clear, Proposition A no vote on Proposition A allows us to get a better deal on transportation. That's the bottom line for me. So that's my stance on Proposition A. I think that, and again, better service, not a reduction in service, but there are things that CapMetro is currently offering that our citizens are using, and so providing that service at equal or better levels, as Ms. Marion pointed out, the point-to-point transit is highly used, but they only offer it in part of the city, so I think expanding that makes a lot of sense. I will add something to where that money is spent on. So in the future, once that exit penalty that CapMetro gets to impose on us, what they call the net financial obligation, once that's paid off, then these funds, if Proposition A is a no vote and Proposition B is a yes vote, these funds would go into the city general fund, and we could do some interesting things with it. One thing we could do, if you think about the history of Lago Vista, we, for decades, had really no source of revenue except property taxes. And so there was not enough property taxes to even fix the roads. And so previous city councils struggled with that. Thankfully, we are operating at a time where there is some sales tax, and we've had some growth, so property tax have grown. If we were to have access to this money in sales tax, additional sales tax, not only could we and should we use it for transportation costs, but I think we should look seriously at, does that allow us to reduce property taxes because of the additional sales tax that comes in through this measure? So that would be one of the focus areas I would look at giving back to the citizens on the property tax side, if this goes through in the way that I hope it does.
So I was on council in 2016 when we had the vote originally about CapMetro. And at the time, the ballot language was a little bit different, and it was really pretty confusing. And I had a bunch of people come up to me after the fact and said, hey, I think I voted the wrong way because of the confusing ballot language. So that was a reason why I was in favor of having this item, again, giving the voters one more chance to vote on this particular issue. The council has had probably at least 3 discussions on CapMetro over the last 6 months. I highly encourage you to go to the city website and look at some of those videos if you've got more questions about what we've talked about and why we came to the conclusion that we did. The general question is are we getting our money's worth from CapMetro? And I think most people are coming to the conclusion, not really. We think we can get more bang for our buck going a different direction. But Paul and I we're kind of considered the numbers guys on council. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he'll nod with that. And we both took separate efforts to create a spreadsheet where we analyzed a 10-year horizon about the CapMetro situation, and if we got out, and taking into account having to pay off the 6.4 million NFO penalty, if you will, and then also having to fund our own transportation system outside of that. And we both came to the conclusion that the city would be much better off to the tunes of millions of dollars over that 10-year period. And so that's the reason why I'm kind of heading down this direction, that I'm for getting out of CapMetro. I believe one of my duties as a council person is to give citizens the most services for the least amount of money. And I think this is one of those situations where we can do that. I'll echo some of the things that others have said in that this isn't an issue of buses or no buses. Our strategy is going to be to immediately begin to have other services to come in and take over. And we're not going to build our own bus service, as some people have indicated on social media. That's not the intent at all. The intent is for us to contract with either a CapMetro or Cards or something like that, or a combination of those services, so that we continue to have all the services that we have today and more. One last point I would make is that the mayor had conversations with Round Rock, who got out of CapMetro years ago. They contract with CapMetro, and in fact, they have a lot more services than we do. And because of the contracting and the fact that CapMetro has to compete for that business and not just use their bloated overhead to charge us for it, they're charging less. And then in addition to that, Round Rock is going to the feds and getting grant dollars to help offset the cost. And so that would be our absolute strategy if the citizens decide to get out of CapMetro, is to go down that path of contracting with firms that are experts in delivering transportation services, and to get federal dollars to have offset it so it's cheaper to our citizens. One last point I'll make. I've seen on social media that they don't trust the city to do a bus service. Just ask yourself, you're trusting us to deliver clean drinking water to you, and we can't get people around the city? Are you kidding me? Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. If I was on council, I would have had a plan in place of how to get around. I think that citizens, considering how they get around town, is a big deal, and I think that an education campaign about this CapMetro thing, instead of just being, are we going to take money from this plan and come up with something else, would have been, well, let's, talk about what a different plan would look like, because I think it is scary for folks as we talk about taking away transportation for some folks. So I'm very much for getting out of CapMetro. But I will have to say that we are so far from Austin. Why do we pay $1 million plus for a few $100,000 worth of cars and drivers? So I think that, just from my business background, I just think it's money wasted, and I'm surprised that it took from 2016 to 2022 to realize that there was something that needs to be done. So I think at the end of the day, the money could be used to buy cars, buy vehicles, buy vans. There are ways to do that. There are ways to put small plans into place and flag it out of an existing board in the county. But, I'm just kind of a bottom line person, so maybe that's not quite right away the right thing to do right away, but this is my way of doing things. I think if the citizens vote no, what would I like to see the money spent on? I would like to see the money carved out of that for basic city improvements, which we've talked about in one way or another is okay for the money to be spent upon. But I believe that we should carve it out for studies. We accept a developer's narrow scope of density estimations, impact studies, water, wastewater. We sit on planning and zoning or council, and we say, hey, Mr. Developer, that's going to make $1 million from this. Maybe you might just sell it to somebody else, or you just make $1 million yourself and you move on to Chicago or New York. What's your people's impact studies say? And yes, we can say it's an independent third party, and they are, but follow the money, right? There's going to be a silver lining in that. So why rely one deal at a time when we have 4 or 5 huge developments in town that are greatly going to affect traffic, wastewater, electric, environment all at once? to me, I don't get it. It's kind of a no-brainer to me. So instead of saying let's take a look at one at a time and let's stage it out, let's do it all at once. So I'd like to carve out this money and do a global study, a global impact study across the board. They're expensive. I get it. But when we take money out of what we're taking money out of for the right reasons, right? Let's put it towards something else for the right reasons. So I think a global study to get ahead of this thing is absolutely imperative. Thank you.
So I favor voting no on Proposition A and leaving CapMetro and returning the money to the city. However, I'll support whatever the voters decide. I mean, obviously, we're not going to move forward if the voters don't approve it. My research indicates that there are really good arguments for leaving CapMetro. If the plan does move forward, there needs to be an immediate bridge to service those who are losing service. We can't afford to cost them their jobs. So, on the mass transit needs, I think that we need to be looking for a cheaper service, and we're not. It may take a couple of years before we work all the bugs out, but the first trial will obviously be cheaper than CapMetro. Eventually it'll be perfected. I favor a better intercity bus transportation system, going to more neighborhoods like everybody else does, and a more regular, reliable type of interlocal. With the leftover money, also long term, the meeting the other day said that was going to cost us about $20,000 a year or something per person for the handicap side, and I think we can do better than that. We have to use it for the time being, but there's got to be something cheaper. Where would I put the money? We have a park out there that needs an acceleration, deceleration lane, needs electricity. There's 2 ball fields that aren't finished. It needs to be switched over to type 1 effluent so that it can be sprayed on the ball fields safely. Roads are a major issue. Every road that got seal coated, that's putting paint on a pig. It didn't do anything. You got maybe another 1.5 years life out of that road. We need to be going in there and fixing roads. And some of these main arterials don't have enough base, and this would provide a sort of funding to do a comprehensive road rebuilding plan with ribbon curves. And with the ribbon curves, we'll actually get 20 years out of our roads.